Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're gonna just make the neck. We're not gonna carve it, we're not gonna do anything like that. The way that I build is I build my body and I build my neck and then I use a spline system and join it together. I'll show you that later, but for now this is how I do this. You can use systems like the Spanish foot, which I'm not personally a big fan of, mainly because of structural issues. If you get cracks along either side of the fingerboard and it detaches from the cross brace underneath the fingerboard, that whole top section can shove in because you don't have the sides to really resist against that. So for me, I do it this way. It works really, really well. I've never had a neck angle move on me. I've already got this neck blank made up. I make these probably about 75 to 100 at a time just because it takes a long time to do all the setup cuts, and I may go through that at a later point. Comment down below if you want to see that. I've got this neck blank already made, and we're gonna start off by measuring 5 millimeters, and today I actually have a handy dandy pencil. I'm gonna measure 5.5 millimeters from the edge of the headstock just because that's where I want my nut to be. It's not hypercritical because this is going to move a little bit. This is a 630 rule that I've made, and however you choose to measure out your string length and fret spacing, use that to measure. Now, one thing I've never really pointed out, when you're using this as a fret rule or a marking guide, you've got, I suppose for you it would be a left side, a center, and a right side. By having these various sides to choose from, it's important to be consistent. Now, you have to have the spot for the nut, so this is essentially 0, and then 12 frets, and then I go up to 20 because I like to build guitars with 20 frets, and this particular guitar will also have 20 frets. If not, you don't need to cut it, but it's nice to have it and not need it, rather than to need it and not have it. That said, I've already got a center line scribed all the way up this piece. I'm choosing this edge of the slot. And again, this isn't hypercritical quite yet because we're going to do some shaping and we're going to cut it a little bit long. I'm choosing this edge to line up over here, and then here at the 12th fret, I'm going to make a mark on this side so that way I know to cut across here with my bandsaw. So today I chose not my grandfather's scraper, but my children's grandfather's square. Let's see, each of these sides has been made parallel, so this one I had less cut off. I'm going to take my square and just strike a rough line. And then while I'm at it, this is kind of one of my fret scales, fret rules, what have you. I'll mark it out ever so slightly wide and just visually center it up because a lot of this is getting cut away. I just find it very easy to deal with all this extra material now rather than make a cut, come back, measure, make a cut. I just like to draw the lines, and it's got more or less the fingerboard taper, and this is way oversized and I'm not going to cut to the line anyways, but I just want to know what to get rid of. So I'm going to take this to the bandsaw, I'm going to take my cut here, and then I'm going to cut off all this excess out here, which again doesn't matter too much. Alright, let me go do this and I'll be right back. Alright, so now that this is all cut, which was pretty quick and easy, I actually make a mark a little ways up right on the center line. The reason I do that is because of the way that I build, and this is unique to me and my father and maybe a few other places that have learned a few things from us. So what I do here is I mark here, and actually I don't even know what this is, it just is my reference point. This is 50 millimeters from this cut line, and this will be a 1/4 inch hole that references to my neck angle jig, my neck slot routing jig, and my neck carving machine. And this is just a single solitary pin because marking and scribing 2 holes and getting them drilled exactly right is near impossible. So as a very smart man once said, a man's got to know his limitations. So I just take this, bump it up, make a healthy scratch right across the center line so that way I can see exactly where I'm going, and I circle it. I don't like to mark it because the pencil makes scratch marks unreadable. So I'm going to take this over to the drill press and drill down, probably about halfway down my neck blank with a 1/4 inch bit, and that way I know I've got enough depth, and if there's any taperedness from the usage of a drill bit, I'm getting past that, so I've got a true 1/4 inch and I don't have to compression fit and mess up my guide pins. So I'm going to drill this, and then I need to drill out for the headstock, so we'll talk about that in just a second. Now with that drilled out, I can start to think about these. Now, a lot of makers will use something like this, which is really good if you don't use a consistent head thickness. The way I design my heads and my system here at the shop is that I make sure that my headstocks are always the same thickness. The other thing is, and this is a holdover from my father, never drill your headstock until you have the tuning machines on hand. You know, back in the day when they were transitioning between 36mm to 35mm spacing, that used to be an issue because you may have ordered a 36 and a 35 arrives, and if you drilled out your headstock prematurely, then your machines didn't fit and you had to bore out the holes and they were just flat ugly. Sometimes with some of the Spanish made stuff, one will be a 35 and the other be a 36, so you would always have to drill it out. I don't know why I hold this off. Again, it's a holdover. It's kind of like asking grandma how she does her Thanksgiving ham, and she says, oh well, you take your ham, you cut off the edge here and the edge here, and then you put it into the oven and cook it for 6.5 hours. And you know, it gets handed down from grandma to mom and so on and so forth, and you start to wonder, why do I cut off the ends? And sometimes it's something as pragmatic as the answer being, oh well, that was only how big my oven was. So again, I think this is one of those, it's how big my oven was, or in this case, you know, we have to worry about the proper spacing of the tuning machines. That said, I have been surprised a couple times in my building career, but it's a really, really rare occurrence. So, you know, I could go out on a limb and just pre-drill all of my heads, but I don't. Because of that, now I get to show you how I drill out my heads. Because this is great, but it's scary because when the bit grabs in here, you run into issues. So let's go over to my 3-head drilling press and drill it out. So here's my 3-head drilling machine, and it's got a foot switch on it. So all I have to do is I've got these 2 edges which reference to these 2 edges of my head. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up here, and then I'm going to step on the foot switch. So I'm going to turn this on, drill one side, and then flip it around and drill the other side. I know it's going to be perfect. And as you can see, these are perfectly drilled out where the center of the holes match up with the center of the holes. You can always tell because when you look through this middle hole, they line up perfectly, and it's not an oblong hole. It's nice and round. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end of the road with this for now, because we still have to cut the angle onto this and put a cap onto it and so on and so forth. I've already prepped all of these pieces, and I actually take this out of a larger piece and I nestle 2 of them like this, so there's very, very minimal waste. And you don't have to do it this way. Again, I like a single piece just because it looks nicer. And so you also have to take into account that on my blank there's a bit of a taper here, so I'm not going to line up the sides exactly, because again, when I sand this side to fit it to the body, if I put it inbound a little bit, it's actually going to shorten my length and take away all the excess length from the nut end. So I actually like to have it stick out, but I like to make sure that it's a glue ready surface. So what I'll do at this point is I take my scraper, and I don't do a whole lot, I just use a blade because it is easier. I just like to scrape the very end just a little bit and give it a slight hollow. You can see how there's a little bit of light underneath there, and it's not rocking anywhere, but it's a slight hollow all the way across. So that way, when I put this on, which also has a very slight hollow, when I clamp it, it holds together, clamps the edges very tight. So when I glue this, I'm just going to glue here. I'm going to line it up roughly centered, because again, it doesn't really matter that much. And then I'm going to put a small little clamp right here and a big clamp right here. It'll be very quick. Here we go. I probably should have some newspapers out, but I've never done it before, and I don't see a reason to start doing it now. I'll just clean up the glue drips at a later point. And again, I'm just going by eyeball. It doesn't really matter that much at this point, because it's going to slither around a little bit. So that's tight, and then I come back in here, just right here in the middle, because again, that's the important part. And then I'm good. So that is how you make a neck, or at least get it prepared up. I'm going to be making the fingerboard pretty soon. We're going to be bracing the top and then getting all this closed up. So it's a lot of preparation work, and then everything comes together pretty quickly. So if you like seeing this, please like, subscribe, comment down below what you want to see or any questions. I'm happy to answer them. I really love making these. A link for everything I use is down below in the description. For $500 off a deposit of one of my guitars, use the promo code YouTube, and please buy a shirt. They're fun. They help me out. They help you out. They're comfortable, and everybody who knows. If not, you'll get so many comments on it. I promise you'll love it. So until next time, I'll see you later.